So, hey everyone, welcome to our community corner. It's our second session. And the purpose of this webinar is really just to help you kind of navigate our platform, but it's also to help give you a kind of a good idea of threat intelligence and the broader threat intelligence community, what's happening, everything like that. We want you to feel super welcome. So feel free to say hey in the chat, put your questions in there, your thoughts, your feelings, whatever. This is a community for everybody. So I won't ramble on for too long. My name is Charlotte, just so you know, and I'm the product marketer here at Silent Push. And I am with Maulik Limbachiya, who is our Director of Sales Engineering. And we'll be going through Web Scanner today. So that's a super popular tool on our platform, which is accessible to community users, which many of you, I imagine, are. And Maulik is the best person to be showing you around this platform. He knows the ins and outs of it, and it's a pleasure to have him join us. So Maulik, I'm going to give it over to you. And yeah, let's get straight into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome everybody to the Community Corner. So before we jump into some of the cool tips and tricks that I have planned for you within Web Scanner, I think it might be a really good idea to understand, one, why we're collecting this data and what part and what reasoning we have to be able to put this together that functions in a way to be able to look and accomplish our mission here at Silent Push. So with that, let me share just a quick slide before we jump in. So when we take a look at Silent Push and understand what our mission is as a organization, it really comes down to understanding how we can track the TTPs of infrastructure creation and management by threat actors. So if we take that as our North Star and we look backwards from there, there's kind of two different things that we need to collect on in order to get to that end result. The first is our DNS collection apparatus. So this is something that you guys might know us for being able to collect and show a lot of passive DNS information that we've been able to collect. However, one thing to note here is that that collection, that from a passive standpoint, is not passive at all. We're actually running a active resolution mechanism that's based off of things like zone files, certificate transparency logs, honeypot networks, basically anything that we can use to get our hands on an IP address or a domain. And then all of that is going to be re-resolved at a minimum of once per day. Now, where Web Scanner comes in is how we're able to gather more data on those IPs and domains that we collect. So when we take a look at all of those different IPs and domains, we're also sending all of them to a separate set of infrastructure that we manage that is doing endpoint scanning against them. And we're doing that across 10 to 15 different ports, specifically so that we can stay stealthy. We don't want anybody to burn our infrastructure, particularly threat actors. And when we do this, we're able to create about 150 or so metadata attributes associated with those IPs and domains. So you can think things like favicon information, HTML title, data, certificate information. All of that is going to be here when we do those endpoint scans. Now, what's really great about this is also the scale at which this is being done. We're doing about 200,000 endpoint scans per minute at this point, associated with all of those different IPs and domains that we're able to identify. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can explore that particular context, right? Because every piece of this is going to be independently interrogatable by the community. And in this way, we're able to find a lot of really cool threat actor infrastructure, and we're also able to pivot really effectively across this data set. So with that, let's jump directly into the platform itself. So when you log into Silent Push here, the first page that you get is this search bar. What do you want to know about a particular domain, IP, ASN, or do you even want to do a live scan of a IP domain or URL? All possible from here. However, imagine that we just had a particular domain come across your screen. So let's say it is temporary-access.com, and we hit enrich. What we'll get back here are a multitude of different things, including this breakdown here that is the web scanner. So no matter what this is, and actually let me show you another older example. This is one that we've attributed back to Scattered Spider back in the day. But one of the things that we can do here is actually break down all of the different scan results that we've had associated with this. So what this actually allows us to do is to see how things have changed over time, particularly from an endpoint scanning perspective. So we can get to this from total view. However, we also have the ability to look across this entire data set independently away from total view as well. So if we go up to the top left-hand search bar here and go underneath Explore Web Data, we can actually hit this Web Scanner button. And what this allows us to do is to create queries across that entire data set. So thinking back to all of the data that we had before, I mentioned that we had about 150 different fields that we're able to create based off of doing these endpoint scans. So if we break down that field name section here, you can see all of the different ones that we've been able to identify. So this is a really good way for us to start an investigation here, right? So just to give an example to start with, let's take a look at one that I always like to pick on. So there is a information stealing family called Medusa Stealer. And what's great about Medusa Stealer is that by default, when you buy it off of Telegram and you stand up a server for it, quite literally on port 80, to make it really easy to find, it has the HTML title of Medusa Stealer. And if we expand any one of these different results that we get back, what you'll see are a number of those different key value pairs that we're able to create. So there's a number of ones here that I think are really, really useful in the hunting context. So in particular, we have three that I think are really fun to use. One is the HHV. So this is a proprietary hash that we've created associated with header strings. So when the headers come back, when we do a scan, we take the order in which they come back as well as the text there, not the values, and we create a hash out of that. At the same time, we've also created something called the SHV that takes all of the different scripts or JavaScript libraries that are used on a particular page and hashes that together. So it makes it really easy for us to be able to find if a particular adversary is utilizing the same 6 JavaScript libraries over and over and over again. And then we have a third one called the CHV when there are certificates present that takes specific aspects of the certificate and hashes that together. So those three are proprietary. They're ones that are created here by Silent Push to aid in the threat hunting exercise. Now, I'd also be remiss if I didn't point out that we also have some fuzzy hashing that's on top of this as well, or that's created when we do these endpoint scans. In particular, we utilize the SS-Deep fuzzy hash. So if you guys don't know what that is, it's a really fantastic hash. There's a great open source project about it. Essentially, what we're able to do is to take all of the JavaScript data, the HTML body content data, and create these SS-Deep hashes around it that allows us to do fuzzy hash matching across that content, across our entire data set. And then lastly, we also have a fuzzy hash matching or fuzzy matching capability around favicons. So one of the things that we can do instead of just generating like an MD5 or a SHA-256, we can also use the AVG hash, which is a visual similarity hash that we can attach to the favicon and look and see if threat actors have changed a couple of pixels, the size of a particular favicon in their deployments throughout the internet. So this is all a lot of data, right? We can see a ton of the different pairs that we're able to develop here. However, one piece that actually makes this really fun to take a look at is how we can actually compare different result sets together. And by the way, what you're seeing here is also multiple different scans of the same IP. And what will happen here when you look at web scanner results is if there is no change, for example, in a particular IP or a particular domain, say we scan something right now, and then again 5 minutes from now, and there was no change, all we would do is append the scan date. We wouldn't create a net new row. When we create a net new row, it means that there has been something different that has occurred when we have scanned that particular page. However, when we want to take a deeper look at this, we can actually compare different sets of infrastructure together. So if you highlight these two different IPs, let's say the 79.137 IP and this 542 IP, and hit the compare button, what we're able to see is something like this. So this takes all of those different key value pairs that we have and compares them across these two different sets of infrastructure. So what we see here in the green and red are those differences that we've been able to see across the deployments. However, everything that is not in bold here is actually a similarity. And we can break that down just in terms of similarities here, utilizing the tabs up on the top. Now, what we can do from here is pivot even further. So there are a bunch of really interesting ones that we can take a look at here when it comes to the similarities. Number one, we have the HHV, right? So that's that header hash value for hunting that I had talked about before. We have the body SHA-256. So everything within the body tags of the HTML is the exact same between the two. And then also one that's very interesting here is that both are actually pulling the logo from a very similar path, or the same path rather, with a very specifically titled SVG file. So these are all really good fingerprints for us to take a look at. So if we then go out here into the expanded view, we can actually create a query that looks for these things. Anything that you see here in blue is actually something that you can add to the query really easily. So let's do that really quickly for those values that we found that are similar. Let's add in the HHV value with the operator as equals to. Let's add in the body SHA-256 as a equals to operator. And then let's go down to that logo URL and add that in as an equals to. So now when we go up to the very top, we have a 4-part kind of query Lego block kind of approach added together. And let's actually delete that HTML title. So we can take a look and see at just these 3 different attributes appearing throughout our entire data set. And now what we'll get back here is an entirely new set of infrastructure that we've been able to see that all, or mostly all, I guess I'll say, don't have that HTML title of Medusa Stealer. There's a lot of other ones in here that still have that same sort of components. And we can be relatively sure that this is Medusa Stealer kind of in 2 ways, right? One, if we take a look at HTML body SSD column, all of them look very, very similar. We can also visually check this out here as well. So if the page is live, we can always click on that URL, do a live scan directly from here, or we can copy out that URL, jump out to live scan, and then do a advanced scan for that particular IP or domain or URL. So in this case, I can say I want to come from a particular region with specific user agent parameters, and then hit that particular domain or IP from silent push infrastructure. So then what we'll be able to see here are all of those different attributes that we've been able to derive based off of this. And then towards the top, boom, there we go. We can see live right now the login page for Medusa Stealer. So in essence, this is really helpful for us to do those hunts, to do that pivoting and understand where this attacker infrastructure appears throughout the internet. Now, at the same time, I also wanted to introduce you guys to a couple of other different data sources and fields that might be really interesting for you guys for a investigation sort of purpose. So one that is really fun to play with is one that we call data source. So by default, whenever we do a web scanner search, what we are looking for here are some of the different web scanner results that we pull back. So generally everything that we're pulling down from web specific content. However, if we utilize this field name as data source, we can actually change the index of that data. So instead of just picking web scan, we can also go look across the dark web because we're doing the same sort of spidering across the onion router. We can also go look for these sorts of different scan results across open directories. And this is actually a lot of fun because not only can we go look for files and folders, we can also utilize some of the different field names here to have specific characteristics associated with them. And One other really quick point is that we can always use wildcards here in the value section. So for example, if I take a look at the data source is Open Directory, and I wanted to look for any time that we have seen a .zip file, for example, we can use the wildcard at the very top and put in .zip. And when we click search here, it'll actually automatically change that to an operator that ends with .zip. And we can see all of the different times in which we've seen a zip file actually appear within any of the open directories that we've been able to scan. So a lot of really good stuff that we can do here as well. And then lastly, what I'll show you here before I jump into some questions is also the services side of the house, because we're scanning not just the regular port 8443, we're scanning about 10 to 15 other ports. We can also pull down services and banner data from that as well. So you can see here, when we expand this out, that we have that banner data for DNS mask here, and also the GeoIP, ASN, and IP information is going to be here as well for us to pivot across.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be on the line, guys, if there's any more questions that you have for the next couple of minutes. But I'm happy to wrap it up here and just say thank you so much for attending. Please leave your feedback. It really helps us, create these sessions and make sure they suit what you're looking for. Quick reminder as well that we have just put out 2 really great blogs on Fin7 and VisorBank spoofing, where we detected 2,000 plus phishing domains. So those 2 blogs are definitely worth checking out. You can go to silentpush.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining. We're going to be holding another session next month, early November. You're more than welcome to leave feedback on what you'd like us to cover next. I know there are a few comments here about covering passive DNS, dangling records. So all of that, we'd love to get your feedback on. And yeah, we'll see you next time. We'll hang around for 1 more minute in case you have any more questions. But otherwise, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your week.